all the famous people.
Oh, this is so interesting to hear myself do these.
What?
La 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 la. Wah, 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 wah.
Guess who's back?
Hello.
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 It only took me 2 years to get her back here.
I know.
It was your fault, you know.
Oh,
No, your schedule,
yeah,
your schedule was
and a
tough.
little something called COVID, but okay, it was totally I started it. Well, you're.
I said, I want you to come on my podcast. You look at me. Who are you again?
Yeah, well, you have
Who are
you
you
have charisma.
Oh, charisma.
Charisma. It's the X factor.
I do know one time I did a studio, and it was the middle of the afternoon, and I guess you had people in there, and I started drinking what was ever on the table. I ended up leaving by like 3, and I was not in a good place.
Hammered. It happens in my studio. There might be some drinking going on occasionally.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank you for
Good to see
having
ya.
me. Yes. Cheers to you.
Salutes.
Salute.
Yes.
Chin chin.
Now I remember she's back. Yeah, so the last time you were here, you were in a different studio. You were in
in this different studio. Yes.
Well, no. Hold on. In my old studio, remember
Yes.
during COVID, I separated the
Yes.
rooms. As you actually were in the neighboring studio.
I
We
know.
were doing appropriate social distancing.
We're doing beyond appropriate social distancing. It was more than 6 feet apart. It was 2 different rooms.
And then she said, in a couple months I'll come back when we can actually get in the same room. And
Yeah.
a couple months turned into 2 years and 3 months.
To be fair, we have tried to set this up,
We have.
and either one or the other of us is
And it's
not
my
been
fault.
able.
I'll take some blame. I'll take some.
Okay, you should, because I have emails.
She's saying she has the proof.
I sure do.
So I'm gonna throw it right out there.
out there.
You moved to Tri-mont, right?
I moved to the Tri-mont. Well, I haven't fully moved to the Tri-mont. My partner and I bought a place in the Tri-mont, and very excited about it.
I can imagine.
Mostly because it's kind of moving on from a chapter of my life that wasn't always glorious, and so this is like a nice new beginning. And I think post COVID we could all use a nice little beginning.
Yes.
Even if it's a little tiny thing, it doesn't have to be moving.
Well, she went to the 21st floor, so
Moving on up.
you're definitely gonna. do you use like home shopping services? Like, do you get your own groceries? Can we find Mia Tarducci at the market?
Oh, you sure can. Oh, so
Let's
much
see if
so.
it happens now.
So much so.
Let's see if it happens
So
now.
much so that one time I was on Bumble, and I'm just gonna go there,
We're
Eric.
off to the races.
I'm just gonna go there.
We're off to the races.
I was doing the Bumble, and it was like really really close to just having ended the lockdown, right? And I'm going there and I'm buying groceries. I have 4 children, so there's a lot of groceries to be had. And I had my wear from being in the studio, and I look like I've been asked if I need to use my food stamps at the checkout. So I don't look especially glorious.
No, that didn't happen.
It did happen. It did happen. Which I found very,
Some kindness in there. Yeah.
Yet offensive.
A little leveling.
It was I mean, I think that anyway, at any rate. So I was in the Giant Eagle, and I had my gear on, and I had a face mask on. So like literally nothing that would indicate me being okay. Hello, love.
That's good.
Nothing.
Good.
Nothing.
Spending time in London.
No, a little bit.
Okay.
I may have had a boyfriend there at one point.
So
anyway.
I know our next subject.
But so I was back turned, opening up. I think I was getting yogurt, and I know I was getting yogurt because I remember it was so weird. I was wearing a mask. I had my gear on from my studio. It's completely like it was a very, very thick studio day, so I was like covered in paint, like legit.
You're always
wet.
covered in paint.
I know, but legit wet paint,
Okay.
right? And I'm like, got the mask on, and this guy taps me on the
Commercial for
shoulder.
Blick, by the way.
I know. Come on, Blick.
Blick paint. You were covered in Blick paint.
Utrecht, but yes.
Oh, sorry.
Sold
I messed you up
by
there?
Blick.
Oh,
Sold by
okay.
Blick.
Okay.
At any rate, so I'm standing there, and this guy taps me on the shoulder, and he's like, I turn around, and he said, and I, again, full mask, like all you can see. He's like, hey, are you Mia? And it's like, yeah. And he's like, well, we matched on Bumble.
Oh, you gotta be shitting me.
Are you fucking kidding me?
What? No, wait.
Yeah.
You're at the grocery store.
I'm at the grocery store.
Paint.
I'm just like, all I want to do is get fucking home. I don't even want to cook.
Bumble
I don't even want to
match.
be at the grocery store. I don't want to be anywhere but like, you know, maybe having a glass of wine in my house.
You can't make that up.
You cannot make this shit up. So he's just like, tap, tap, tap. Are you Mia? Hey, we matched on Bumble. My name, I was like, thank you. He gave me his name because I went on Bumble and I unmatched with said person. But and then I got off the app immediately because it's like, this is too much.
Yeah.
Too much.
And this happened during COVID.
It was really, really close to the lockdown. It probably was like within the first couple months of the lockdown.
Okay.
I mean, that's when I was like, Bumble after the lockdown.
So we got locked down in March, right?
Yeah. So this is probably like in the summer sometime, like maybe July. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't remember. All I remember is freaking weird.
Yeah, that's weird.
And I was dunzo with the app and with all of the like that was weird. I'm sorry. That was a little aggressive. Like don't
that's creeper
and
shit.
And did he follow me around the fucking I have no idea.
That's creeper shit.
It was super creeper shit.
Yeah.
And also not for nothing, but you don't know if the people on Bumble are the people that are represented on their like not. You know, so like somebody I have pictures out there, somebody could use them and you know claim to be me. Like that is weird. It is.
That's really weird.
It was me, but
of course it was.
I'm not gonna.
But let me ask you this: I'm not
gonna say that I didn't try Bumble and Hinge and
wait, Hinge? What's Hinge?
Hinge is one that you like. You can like certain things about a profile, but not like the whole profile. It's just. I mean,
you can get that critique of someone's. Wait, really?
Yes, and then also Tinder is like no longer what it used to be. It's definitely like calmed down from like it used to be like the hooking up.
Yeah.
Now people I've met or know in my life have married their Tinder dates, and
that was.
I don't know. I think online dating. All of them are swipey, swipey. So, and it does. So I do have an issue a little bit with that whole idea. Is like you know, I am not an easy person.
You don't say.
So it might take a little bit of time to get to know me, but like in this swipeable world that we're in, you know, it just lends itself to like, oh, I'm uncomfortable for a hot second, I'm swiping this way, you know, like, and I think that's very interesting because it doesn't allow people to actually, you know, relate in a way that's challenging, and I think challenges failure. I think we've discussed this on previous shows as well. Failure, the only failure is the failure to not fail. I mean, you have to have those incidences of being uncomfortable. You have to have those moments of like, you know, not being sure and maybe finding somebody difficult to actually push through to find who the real person is. And if we're just like swiping and this becomes something that we are conditioned to do in every facet of our lives, then we are actually missing out on a great potential of depth in
there's no depth with that.
There, you know, there can be, and I'm not saying that there isn't, and I'm not saying that you know everybody. It's not like one way for everybody, but it does lend itself to, you know, this idea of swipeability does lend itself to this idea that like it's got to be perfection, which is a thing that no one should ever try to seek because I think that we're all so imperfect that like if we get this concept of perfection, it's going to be so dull and so without life that we will be very, very sad that was the pursuit in the first place.
Does that exist? I mean, you're an artist. Like, I mean,
does it matter?
It's a funky
does it
word.
matter?
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything's so subjective in terms of that.
Well,
so
it should be
like,
because life is subjective.
life is subjective, but I think that like the idea that there's a perfect mate is so great, you know, it's so drilled into us.
Generations
before
us.
I mean, it's the idea of like, you know, romantic love. You know, you have so many different cultures that is not the impetus for marriage, and that is not the reason, you know, to pursue something romantic with somebody, or rather, yes, it is because it's romantic love, but. No, but it's not the reason that why you go forward with somebody with you know a real sense of compassion, right? So compassion is something that we often neglect in terms of our relationships, in terms of our pursuit for somebody that is you know, suitable for us, or whatever the word might be. That's not a really good word to use because it implies a lot of different things. But compassion is really, you know, if you think about your best relationships in life, the thing that I think unifies all of them is compassion. I think you have friends that like do really stupid fucking things and you roll your eyes and you're like, God, fucking I am really embarrassed right now to be this person's friend. But there's compassion behind that because you've experienced things with this person. You know, this person maybe made a mistake.
Right.
You know, maybe this person has you know, like a tendency to misspeak. You know, that there's something that's so redemptive about this person that you've been a friend with them for so long. And I think that's something that we miss often in these you know, relationships that also have the romantic quality, is we don't leave room for the mistakes. We don't leave room for the growth. And I think that that's a huge mistake, because I think it's in the discomfort, it's in the mistakes, it's in the failures that we truly learn to love one another.
Look at that. That's pretty good.
I don't even know where that came from.
No, that was pretty good. But I think most people go into newer relationships looking for the tell that it's not the right one, as opposed to...
Yeah, but what does that mean? I mean...
you know what I mean? Like, they're actually looking to find reasons.
There are certainly things that you could say, this is a tell. Like, if somebody's a racist, you're like, oh, fuck me. Yeah, that's that's somebody that I will not be with.
It's pretty bad.
If somebody's a homophobe, a xenophobe, any of these things that are like, like, you know, personal qualities that like are not going to change no matter what you might say or do with this person. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But like, if somebody
burns the pancakes,
does something
if
somebody does something human, right? Makes a mistake, trips on themselves, I don't know, chews gum snapping, I don't know what the fuck it is that annoys. Yeah, whatever, like by accident or maybe even on purpose. Like, why not spend the time to see what else is behind that rather than
disqualify them?
Yeah, I find it so swipeable.
Yeah,
it's the swipeable.
Well, that's an instant disqualification.
And I think that is sort of where society has sort of gone with a lot of things, is that, you know, there are other, you know, the grass is so much greener on the other side. Oh yeah. But you don't even know what the grass looks like. You don't know what the grass looks like. I mean,
it's concrete.
We're an Instagrammable society.
Yes.
Whether that's with our personal lives or, and let me take this back around to what I do for a living, art. Okay. You know, art can be very Instagrammable, but not in person be of quality. You know, so there are so many facades that we have that we can, you know, kind of like use. It's kind of like, remember Sims? And I don't play video games, but I'm like having a revelation right now.
The Sims.
So the Sims, you could buy skins. You could buy skins, right?
Yep.
And that's the facade, right? And now we as a society, it's not a video game. It's our actual, like our life. And we can sort of buy skins for ourselves by
I would agree.
Either filtering photographs or just posting the best ones, or just like... How
do you feel about that? Because
I feel fine about it. Everybody has their motivation and reasons, and I don't disqualify whatever those are for like other filters. People. I don't use filters because I feel like I look really ridiculous with filters. Like I feel like
you're 14.
And I'm not 14. I'm 48 years old.
Right.
I own my age.
Right.
I own where I am in life. And also, but by the way, I say that and it sounds very like, judgmental of people that use them. It's not for me. Mm-hmm. Okay. It might be for other people. Maybe it gives them a boost for whatever reason.
Sure.
And I'm super fine with whatever the thing is that makes people feel like they can be more themselves because they feel more confident. They feel uniquely like them. I think all of it's great. I think if you're trying to be deceptive, no, I can't stand deception. I don't like people who lie.
In dating apps, what's your thoughts on people, like...
Listen, I have been out on dating apps with people that have like completely like changed. This one in particular, like he used a different, this guy that he used on the dating app, let me just say, he was hot. And I was roped in. And I show up, and it's a completely fucking different guy. I stayed for a drink. I talked to him because God only knows what is the reason that why you would do that.
I would be fascinated.
I find it intriguing.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And also, maybe he's fucking awesome, and maybe it's a little Cyrano de Bergerac kind of like situation where you like, might not be so pretty, but if I could only just talk, then maybe you'd like me. You never know.
But he deceived you to get there.
I don't like the deception, but I address the deception.
Okay.
And if the deception is like immediately like try to be like, well, I only did a bit, blah, blah. You gotta answer the question properly in order for me to stay. Like if you're trying to like qualify it or some shit like that and not own it, then yeah, I'm gonna walk away. But if you own it and you.
So how different was he from the photograph?
Oh my God.
Do tell.
Not even comparable. Was
the hair color straight?
Nothing was the same. Like literally nothing. Height, hair color, eye color. Nothing. Nothing was the same. And that was okay. I found it intriguing. He did not disappoint in the intrigue. I also said goodbye very early, but like I was intrigued. I stayed. I don't know what to tell you. Also, I did stop using. I was new to the whole online. Like I was married for 20 years, so not online. God,
online dating.
Now I really sound old. No, on the app dating. I would just if there was one picture, I was like, oh, that's cool. There's one picture. I didn't think that there was an issue with that. After a few times,
you learn.
I learned, and I even started putting it in my profile, like, please have all your important teeth. So, like, there's this one guy that I showed up to, and he had one picture, and he was handsome, but he had a closed mouth, kind of smirky.
Okay.
Kind of like, I don't even know. Maybe it was like, what do they call the fishy lip?
Oh, the male version of the fish lips.
Yeah. Whoa, they're so. If you think this is a female thing, you are so wrong.
I did, yeah.
You are so wrong. There are so many men that is that what
fish with really?
Oh,
or duck lips they call it though. Yeah,
duck lips.
Yeah,
and then also actual fish. There's a lot of men that like to put photos of themselves holding fish in pictures, which I don't understand. Also tank tops, but I will move on. This one guy shows up and he had the one picture and it was the same guy. Okay. Now, when he smiled, he was missing a very important tooth. And I was like...
Very important. Usually I think they're all important, but...
I mean, they are. But like, front ones are especially important.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, and I still hung out with him for like a good 2 hours.
As I know you would.
Because I want to still get to know the person. But like, yeah, not attracted, especially. I don't know. I'm sorry. That sounds horrible. Because like, people can be missing teeth and be very awesome.
People can be anything.
They can be.
But
I mean, I know it's
though.
like a visual thing.
It's a preference thing.
I'm sounding like a real asshole. That's what I'm saying.
I don't know if I would have gone out with a woman with the missing front tooth.
It was.
I don't think I would have.
But if they closed mouth smile and they're still cute, maybe I don't know. And then maybe be like, hey, I can set you up with somebody.
Oh my God. I know another toothless person.
I can set you up with a dentist or something. I was thinking helping them out.
I have a friend that's missing their teeth too. Maybe they'd be a great connection.
You went a different way, Eric. I was going.
Of course I did.
I was going friendly, loving.
You were. But back to the whole swiping thing. What I'm saying to you is, it's an immediate dismissal, a yes or a no, right? Potential 50%.
Yes.
So there's no depth to that at all.
There's no depth to that, and I understand that. And then when it gets beyond that, the problem is the idea, the concept of that still exists. So if the date isn't exactly how you would have wanted it to go, swipe. If the person did something or said something that was like, I'm not sure, swipe. So it's not just, I understand like it's
surface level stuff.
I understand the surface level stuff because we did grow up with this romantic quality about like who we are supposed to be with in this country. I mean, it's not like we're not going on dating apps to like have our parents match us, right?
Right.
We're not going on dating apps to like find the perfect economic situation. We're going. It's a visual thing. We're going on dating apps. Who do we find attractive? Who's attracted to us? Is the first thing. And so like you can't. I mean, it's ludicrous to say that it's anything other than that.
Right. Well, it's dishonest.
Right. And then yes, it is dishonest. And that's cool and that's fine. And I think that's like although I will say now that
guy was dishonest.
Now that I actually said that, I think people do go on and just like, what is the occupation? What is the financial background of this person? So I could be wrong. I go on it.
Everybody has different goals.
You're not wrong. And I need to rein myself in often because I think that sometimes I think that the things that I think everybody thinks, and that's like
that's natural.
It's natural, but it's also like really fucking flawed. And so I've been trying to not do that.
Oh.
And I've also been talking to my children about that because I do realize, so I have the 4 kids and 3 are, college. Mm-hmm. And I only just in the last year realized that like my kids don't want out of college what I wanted out of college. And I kept thinking for whatever reason that they did, which is so stupid, but like, I'm a human being and I can be very stupid. So I was like, oh, they want these same things. They want like whatever it was that I wanted to, and I could go on, but whatever. So I sat my son down. So my son and I have a standing like either lunch or dinner date once a week. He's the one that's been in the house for the last year. My daughters came back and have, well, actually 3 of them have. Anyway, so the grown children have come back as well. So, but my son and I have a standing dinner date or lunch date, and we talk about whatever. Like we talk about like family history of illness. We talk about like where we are in terms of our own, sanity. We talk about like he's an amazing illustrator. Like I cannot wrap my brain around what he does. Like first of all, they're really tiny, and as you know, my work is really big. And I think I do the really big.
Furthest thing from
There's
tiny.
many reasons why I do the really big, but possibly part of it is because I'm not very technically skilled.
Okay.
So
he makes these little micro drawings.
He's micro. They're insane, and I'm being the proud mama right now, but like it's amazing. Yeah, amazing work. And so anyway, I forget what I was going. Oh no! So on one of these nights that we went out, I apologized to him. I said, I'm really sorry. I recognized that I had been imposing on him the things that I had wanted for myself at that age.
Okay.
And and maybe it's true. It's all your perception of your own reality of like how aggressive you had been or not been. But like, I think I'd definitely been imposing this idea of like, you need to go to school and you need to do this because it's like prestigious or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I definitely didn't stop to consider who my son was.
Yeah.
And who I was in relationship to my son and our relationship. And it was just like this nice pause that I was able to have. And so I apologized to him for like for definitely like imposing my will to whatever degree on him, and he just said thank you.
No.
And it was like such a beautiful moment, and it was it's been a very nice thing to like have that sort of standing date, if you will, with him. And it's not a particular day. I can't stand routine. I am really horrible. I'm like the antithesis of OCD. So like I need to be able to whatever, like maybe do lunch, maybe do breakfast, maybe do dinner. It doesn't matter what day. But when we do it, we sit down and we really talk.
Right.
And it's been a really beautiful thing to have in my life with him, because I think it's brought us closer and made it less like I think I've learned a lot from it. I've learned a lot about myself and learned a lot about like the sort of like things I think we do as parents that like, and nobody gives us a manual.
That is true. I've been waiting for mine. They've never provided it.
So
it didn't come in the mail. I'm
not whipping myself here, but when you figure that out, when you figure out that you're not your kids and they desire and need certain things that are not the same things that you needed. It's a beautiful sort of revelation, and to be able to have that moment with your children where you acknowledge that, I was very fortunate to have that. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, it also a lot of it to me is about perception. Like we think sometimes that others, our children especially, are seeing the world exactly the way we have seen it, or we're seeing it now.
And how can we think that post-COVID now, right? Yeah, that's the other thing. If we ever had that idea,
yeah, there's more reasons now to wake up and realize that's not the way it is.
I mean, I used to think, and you're not wrong, I think maybe that was a good shift for me, is I've done that before. This is why we always had these running jokes of like, you had to walk I had to climb like 5 miles in the snow, on a slant both ways. And you have to rethink. There is nothing that in my lifetime that can compare to what we experienced in the pandemic and what my children have experienced. Like there's no high school kind of phenomenon that is relevant to what they experienced as their lives. And
not at all.
It's very interesting to rethink the idea that you had similar experiences. We've never had similar experiences. This is just a very, very, very clear schism. And we can be like, oh, dunk, like now I know.
Yeah, shame on us now if we don't get it.
Shame on us now that we don't. And I don't think there's anybody that doesn't get it, but like, yeah, it's sort of fascinating that we all thought that we had so much. There's nothing similar about any. Think about all the many things that have shifted in the last 100 years in our culture, in our society, and like the way that we view one another. And also, by the way, look at the way that we're going backwards. But like, also, I'm going to pause on that because I can't even with that one. But I mean, it's very interesting to think that we all think that we know exactly what our kids are going through. And it's just so silly. And I think if we think about our own experiences, to have had a parent that would suggest that they know what we're going through, we would have been like, fuck off.
Right. 100%.
But somehow we think we got it right.
Of course. So well, and the generations before thought they got it right.
So silly.
And before them, I think it's a trap. But there's no question about the pandemic being a disruptor of society.
Yeah,
especially with children.
I mean, not a good one. I'm not.
There can be good that comes out of it, though.
It's a terrible thing to say. If we acknowledge the lessons learned from it, then I think there are a lot of positives that can come from the pandemic. I do want to acknowledge, though, that there's a lot of suffering that happened, a lot of families that lost loved ones that weren't able to say goodbye.
100%.
And it breaks my heart every day thinking about those situations. And I think that there's been a lot of like talk about like the positives without acknowledging that there was a lot of truly sad things that did come out and happened to a lot of families across this country and world. And I sometimes feel like that's not acknowledged. So I just want to acknowledge that my heart breaks for the families that suffered so deeply and will continue to suffer because of it.
Beyond the parental aspect, now that we can safely say we hope, we think, we pray that we're kind of moving on from COVID until monkeypox is here next month.
No, it's all going to be folded into like every other disease and every other thing. It's going to be constant. We're always going to have COVID.
Oh yeah, we are.
I've had it 3 times post vaccination,
and so have I. So
3 times post vaccination.
Yeah, I've had 3 times, but that's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
But
I wasn't brutal. That's
we're
the thing.
we're handling it now as a society. Mm-hmm. My question is, we can look back beyond the parental thing. What takeaways can you have, whether it's related to art, which observations? He's breaking the studio. You did that last time too.
My partner knows I am such a brute. Like I have literally broken handles off of car doors. I don't know.
That's kind of scary.
It is. It's a little weird. Anything that can be broken, I will break it. But keep going. I'm sorry.
No, I just said, what other takeaways can you reflect on, besides the parental aspects?
With COVID.
Yeah, like what lesson did you learn about art? What about art? Whether it's your art, whether it's the community, whether it's the industry.
I don't know that I specifically learned a lot about art, except that during the lockdown, there were people that looked at empty walls and they were thinking outside of their vacation space because they couldn't have a vacation. They were thinking outside of buying the new luxury car because, like, what's the point? And they were thinking, like, and so they thought, oh, I actually feel like I want to live in this, or if I'm going to live in this space, what would I want to live with? So I think that for a lot of artists, it wasn't a terrible time.
Okay.
Because a lot of patrons were thinking they now have extra money to do something that is not the typical thing they would do, and they're spending more time in their homes. And I think that people do, I hope anyway, I certainly do appreciate that being in my home, it is a sanctuary. It is a place that I want to be in, and to surround myself with things that I love, whether it's art, it doesn't even matter. Like, I'm not saying this to like be like, hey, everybody should purchase art, because a lot of people don't even care about it. And I get that. I understand it. Maybe they want to have sports memorabilia. Maybe they want to have whatever. But I think there is this sort of like innate sort of humanness of when you are kind of like constrained to one space to surround yourself with things that you enjoy. And whether they're people or things or whatever it is, I think it tends not to be labeled. I think it tends not to be what other people necessarily enjoy. I think that the heart of it is, and the beauty of that is, the humanness of it is that the people find that they want to actually be surrounded by things that they love. And I think that that wound up being a pretty awesome thing, certainly for my practice, and I hope for a lot of other artists.
So was there a refocusing on art, or was there
I just think
you think?
No, I don't think either. I think that it was just like sort of people just kind of being, for the first time, maybe slowed down in their environment and saying like, oh shit, maybe I'm gonna be here for a while. What would What would make me happy in this environment? And maybe it's, who knows what it is, but I would submit to you that it's probably not things that like get thrown at us commercially.
Yeah.
It's probably not labels. It's probably not like the keeping up with the Joneses. It's probably not things that we would typically consider. And I think it was a slowdown and sort of an acknowledgement of self, and saying what would make me happy in this environment if I had to be here for a really long time, because nobody really knew, right? We didn't know what was happening. We didn't know this might be like the end of times, for the love of God. We didn't know, right?
No, that's next month.
I don't know. It's all in flux. But
it's in flux. Everything's in flux.
Everything is fucking in flux. And we don't realize that now. Realize it. Everything's fluid. Everything's flux mode.
For sure.
But I think that it was an interesting time for people to actually literally think for the first time, what do I like? Because this is my space and I got to live in it. And I think it's a really interesting concept to have had that moment. I mean,
yeah,
not concept. It wasn't a concept. It was a reality. But like, I think it was fascinating to have that moment in time. And I don't know that it helped. It probably injured a lot of artists because a lot of artists were up and coming. A lot of artists had shows that they had to have canceled.
Got it.
I feel for all of the artists coming out of art school that were just starting and burgeoning on this career, and then like all these things got. Timing is a lot of life, and
sure is.
And you know, unfortunately, timing can be brutal, and sometimes timing can be awesome sauce.
Very true. What's the biggest piece of art currently hanging in your studio that you're working on, dimensions wise?
5 feet by 15 feet.
That's a smaller one for you.
That's the biggest one I've had. That's the biggest commission that I've had since the 7 by 24 feet is the 5 feet by 15 feet. And I'll tell you what, I'm struggling with it a little bit. But I like that. I like that I'm struggling with it because I think that often means that it's going to come out being like a kind of a bitch to me, which is awesome. Because the ones
what do you mean?
So, I think I've described this before, but I will describe it again.
Your show 267
now.
I can't remember them all.
All right. So, typically what happens when I really fall in love with a piece is there's this like kind of like falling in love where I make the work, like I make the structure and I paint it, and there's like all this endless possibility, and it's like, oh, love. And then as soon as you put one mark on it, it kind of derails that because it kind of like focuses on.
I'm using my word now.
I did.
I'm using my word now.
I did. But it does. It like as soon as you put one mark on anything, it kind of it minimizes the opportunity and the endlessness of anything.
Okay.
Anytime that you speak a word or anytime you make a mark on something, then there is lesser possibility for things. If things are blank, then the world's your oyster. But as soon as you start doing something, then it's less your oyster.
Okay.
So, sometimes when I'm doing a piece, and actually I would say oftentimes when I'm doing a piece, I just go crazy with mark making, and I often don't like it. And sometimes I've even, if it's not a commission, because you can only do this without a commission, is I'll put it in timeout. So like there'll be this like infancy. There's just like the infancy of like making the first moves.
Yes.
Like a child, like, you know, walking for the first time, let's say, you know, and then they get mouthy, like adolescents. You're like, fuck off, and you put it in timeout.
Okay.
So so a lot of the works that I really love in terms of the work that I've done have been in timeout for a very long time. There's one piece that was in timeout for like 2 years, and it's probably my favorite piece.
Holy shit.
But when I was ready to accept that the work was kind of, you know, showing me a different path and kind of leading me a different way, when I was and this is similar, I think, to how I have dealt with my children, like real people, is that when I accept that I'm not always right, and that sometimes the child should be the dictator in terms of like actually how they should be communicated with, and the painting should be the dictator of how it wants to flow. When I get beyond that part of adolescence, as I call it, with the paintings, then they start to inform themselves. And right now with the 5 foot by 15 foot one that I'm working on, it's certainly in its mode of, you know, contradicting me and making me irritated. So I got to just like wait. But because it's also a commission, you know, there's only so much time.
Of course.
But it's good. I'm going to wait for it to describe itself to me and kind of go with the flow of where it wants to go. And then I know it's going to be a good painting. I already know in advance, like I know it's going to draw something out of me. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the things that those circumstances draw out of me is drawing the ego out of me.
Right.
And allowing me to just be calm in myself and not have any expectations. And boy, is that hard as a human being. It really is. And it's a beautiful thing when you can. It doesn't have, even though it's happened to me multiple times, I still can't go back to that place like naturally. Like I'm so aggressively against going, I think like people, we confront that. Like we want our ego. We love our ego.
Sure. Sure.
But when you can release it, it's a beautiful place to be.
You said to me one time when I asked the following question, which I said, how do you know when a painting is done? And your response to me was,
I feel sick in my stomach if I go and touch another element.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
And I have never forgotten that phrase because there has to be something visceral.
Oh, it's completely visceral.
Which I don't think a non-artist might ever feel in their entire life.
I disagree. I think that there are things.
You think?
Oh, I think intuition is
You think that's intuition then?
Okay, so I had this great conversation with a physicist the other week.
Oh, right on.
In Chicago, and he's like a world-renowned physicist. His name's Chris. I don't remember his last name, but he was fabulous. And we had this amazing conversation, and we talked about intuition perhaps being another sense.
Okay.
And we were just spitballing. We were just kind of going back and forth about like, how that is a conceivable thing or like a relevant.
So as a person of science, did he believe that?
No. What I loved about him, because I really dislike science. I don't know.
Okay.
That's not to say I'm a flat earther or any shit like that. I'm not saying that. I like reality.
Yeah.
Science is interesting, though. Too. Science is interesting because I think we give a lot of credence to science being reality. And the fact of the matter is science has changed a lot. A lot. And continues to change a lot. And so for anybody to give 100%, reliability on the concept of science is to me to be like as, kind of small-minded as any other sort of, dogmatic idea.
Well, it all goes back to either a belief or a guess at the beginning.
But it's like, so this guy was awesome. He's like this world-renowned scientist who's written books and like, I don't know. I wish I remembered his full name, but he was phenomenal. But he was like, so he's this amazing physicist. He's like, yeah, we just discovered that like maybe our measurements were not quite right. I'm like, fuck yeah. Because humans made the measurements.
Right.
You can't, like, what is it based on? Uh-huh. It's just like, But yes, are there things that are tangible that we can cling to? Like the world is not flat. Hello, everybody, by the way. It's not flat.
You heard it here tonight.
Not flat.
She's setting the record straight.
But like, the idea that there isn't, other life or the idea that there is some real understanding of
consciousness.
Yeah, of consciousness. Well, I don't even know that delves into science, but like of like formulas. What are they fucking based on? Like, it's just fascinating to me when people are so like headstrong about like this being an absolute.
Absolute's right.
Any absolute, you should. If you have any concept of an absolute, you might need to sit down and have like a real questioning of oneself, because whether it's philosophical or okay. Now I'm going to correct myself, because there are things that you can be absolutely correct on. And that is hatred and being judgmental, and also in any way being,
hurting other people.
Yeah. There are things that you can be absolute on. And I don't want to dismiss that in any way. But if there are things that you feel as though you're absolute on in morality, which, by the way, is so subjective. It is not an objective thing to have. There's no objective morality. Objective ethics, yes. I like that. I like that there are these different things. But
most of the world's subjective, though, and I think that
but I think so many people view it as objective and say
only parts that we want to.
No, let's look
Only
at this country for
to.
a hot second and say like there's this sort of moral like objectiveness. There's first of all the idea of that, even if it's a mass moral objectiveness, is flawed. What is it? Is it a vocal minority? Is it a vocal majority? Who fucking cares? People should have their own morality and should understand that it's their own morality and it's not shared. It's like religions are not even shared in that way. Like there's this, you believe in certain aspects of it, but you probably, if you spoke to somebody who is in your congregation, if you will, I don't even know if that's the same name for every single type of religion. But like if you spoke to somebody who was practicing a similar faith, would you necessarily get the same thing out of it that they did? That should tell you a lot, because I guarantee you don't. And it just, I don't know. I don't even know how I got off on this tangent. Rein me back in. Rein me back in, Eric, because I can go.
I just say you're not a big fan of groupthink.
Oh, no. I specifically applied to schools that did not have the Greek system. I was like, how am I being forced to like people, let alone call them my sister? That is bullshit. So also, for non-binary people, that's super bullshit now, too. Anyway.
It's all right.
Let's move on.
No, it's all right. I want to talk about shame. This has been a recurring topic on recent podcasts, and I was waiting to ask you about this when you finally got back here. Do we as a society, do we value the concept of shame? Does it mean anything anymore? Does it matter anymore? Do we even think about it when we interact with each other, or we try to interact with masses of people? Like the concept of shame, is that something we even entertain anymore?
I do think it is. I think that shame is something that is, again, very subjective. I think it's in everybody's sort of like beingness in terms of like how they interact. I think you can call it a number of different things. I think that often people act contrary to their own beliefs based on shame. Almost like what shame is, how I might describe it would be how other people might view me. So the shame would be, other people not viewing me the same way that I would view myself. And therefore it kind of like colors how you interact with people.
Okay.
I know that for me, again, and this is kind of relative and definitely like corresponds with our discussion about morality. The best experience that I've ever had was shame. And I'm just going to go into it. So I was married for 20 years, and during that time, things happen. And also, this person knew my whole entire life story. A lot of things that I would be shameful for, things that I would feel like I couldn't tell my parents about, or I wouldn't want anybody to know about outside of my personal life, or wouldn't want anybody to know about outside of myself, right? Because God forbid anybody think poorly of me. And I think that is the impetus for shame in and of itself. But so during the course of the 20-year marriage, my ex did wind up going to rehab. And in the rehab, there's, sometimes they encourage letter writing. And so the letter that was sent out was sent to my parents, sent to his parents, sent to my sister-in-law. And the letter read everything that would be in my skeleton closet, if you will.
So he wrote a letter outlining all your...
Correct.
But that's...
It doesn't matter. Irrelevant.
Like,
So,
what do you mean? No, I'm saying that wasn't the purpose of the exercise, was it?
Don't know what the purpose of the exercise was because I wasn't there and I'm not him. But what sent out to my parents and to my in-laws was this letter about documenting everything that I had ever done.
Okay.
That was morally, if you will, horrible or bad or whatever. And he embellished on some things and he lied about other things. It's all irrelevant. It was the first time that I had a letter in front of me kind of documenting things that I would have felt like I would die. I would physically die if people knew this information.
Yeah.
It was now in my parents' hands. It was now in my in-laws' hands. And I wasn't dead. Interesting.
It's a moment, huh?
It was a fucking moment. And I don't give him credit for this, by the way, because I am a phoenix rising. But but I took the letter and I read it, obviously, and I was devastated that, like, my skeletons came marching one by one out of the closet and out the fucking front door, waving flags.
Parading down the street in single file.
And I called my mother, and her response was, "This is the most pathetic letter I've ever read." Wow. I think sometimes we misjudge the people in our lives.
Certainly.
I think sometimes we overthink what we would consider to be our flaws or our wrongdoings or our morally incorrect things. And we don't appreciate the fact that everybody has a soul and everybody has a thought and everybody has compassion. Okay, not everybody, but most people have compassion. Sure. And then I went and I stood in front of my in-laws with the letter in my hand and I talked to them. And I didn't get a good response. But I walked away from that without any of that shame in any of that letter. It didn't kill me. It didn't destroy me. It didn't make me smaller. It made me feel empowered that nothing has to keep me down.
Nothing hurt you.
And
didn't hurt you.
It didn't do all those things that I thought, oh my God, this would totally destroy me. It didn't do those things. And so again, while I don't give him the credit for having done it, it was a moment in my life that allowed me to move on from that idea of shame. Now, that said, what are you talking about when do people feel it? Yeah, people feel it. And I think that's why there's more of these. People feel it so much, Eric, that they want to pass it on to other people. And that's why we have the Karen moments. That's why we have these other ideas, like. Is
it shame or feeling? You think?
I think people want to point out that somebody else is more shameful, right? Because that makes it makes you feel less horrible.
So they're projecting their own issues.
It's more than just projecting it. It's deflecting and allowing somebody else's shame to be more potent so that you can then dismiss your own. And I think that it's very interesting. I found this very interesting as a parent. There are so many controversies as a parent that I watch. My kids are older now, but like when they were children, I remember this one incident in particular that was made like national news where these parents allowed their 12-year-old son to go on the subway in New York City. And it was it was national news that they would possibly let their child of 12 take a subway on his own. Kid probably knew the subway system better than most anyone on the planet, right? Parents knew he knew the subway system. Now, could somebody abduct him? Sure. Is it more likely that a child that isn't well-versed and doesn't know the situation around them is going to be abducted? Far more. Yeah. But we've decided to sort of handicap our children and make ourselves, kind of beholden to other parents rather than our own parenting. And it's
especially in the last couple of decades.
Yeah.
Last 30 years or so, for sure.
It has meant, I think, again, this is just me thinking,
That's why you're here.
I really want to hesitate and to say that I think sometimes, because it's just what I think. I think that it has made children less independent, more likely to have to ask questions about choices that they would otherwise have had to make on their own. And I think it's made parents less healthy.
Neurotic?
Less healthy.
Yeah. Neurotic,
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah. And instead of focusing on their relationship with their spouse, there's too much time dedicated to the relationship with their children, and it's hurting both parties, I think. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying this is so pot kettle, by the way, because I parented during this time, and I did a lot of the same things and made a lot of the same mistakes. But when I look back at it, I think that is something that should be considered. I think shame is very present. I think shame is a motivator for a lot of people to do the things that they do. I think that's why instead of helping people, they take out cameras. Instead of, coming to George Floyd's aid, there were 7 cameras.
Yeah.
That disturbs me as a person and a human being. Mm-hmm. Like, I appreciate that it was documented so that we can have the truth, but I think he would have appreciated more if somebody had intervened.
Yeah, agreed.
So.
Yeah, I think that we have an evolving definition of shame into society where I believe that we're willing to put anything and anything, for the most part, out in the ether and not worry about repercussions like we did in prior decades.
I disagree with you. In prior decades, you weren't able to color it the way that you wanted to. In the prior decades, you weren't able to have your own narrative when you throw it out into the ether.
Well, could you get it out in the ether back then?
You couldn't. Then there were and we can't even go there, because we can even talk about the structure of male, female, non-binary, whatever. We could talk about a lot of things that didn't afford for that. But I think that shame is, and our vocabulary is very, very limited, but I do feel like this is one of those words that does actually resonate similarly for a lot of people. Shame, I feel as though, is not disregarded right now. I feel like it might be the impetus for all of the things that are happening.
So people feeling personal shame and
deflecting it.
Interesting. But to feel shame, must there be a moral compass, an internal moral compass?
I'm not saying that they don't have moral compass. I feel like people feel shame. They feel as though if their stories were, in the real stories, not the ones that they put up in social media, etc. And I guess that's my point. There's this sort of facade that we can all kind of cling to, and then what's behind that? And God damn it, if that facade is broken, what do you do then? Now it's even more shameful. Now you really have to hold to whatever the fucking facade is that you sent out there. And that's a greater impetus in behind, making sure other people are shamed rather than yourself. I think it's breeding this whole.
Could you imagine when we were younger to try to wrap our heads around as a 18-year-old in that environment? I mean,
this is the same. I had to walk 5 miles uphill both ways. I can't, I feel very fortunate in so much as I remember a rotary phone.
Yeah.
I lived in Italy for a year in high school where I could only communicate with my parents once a month vis-a-vis a
telegram or something.
No, it was this room that had phones with cards that you had to put in, and it was $5 a minute, and it was ridiculous. And so I am very pleased in my life that I've seen the kind of arc that I've seen.
Communications, the barriers have been broken down.
The barriers are broken down, but have they? I don't know. They've been broken down, but they've also been built up in many ways, because it's how you choose to communicate now, and you have so many different options to do that.
Yes.
So I find it fascinating. I feel as though I'm very fortunate again because I've sort of, but a lot of people feel very fortunate in the decades and years they grew up in and seen the change that they did. I don't, I think this, the argument of like, are we this generation? I'm 48. Are we better off than my kids who are 23 down to 15?
Right.
No. I mean, they're going to experience and they're going to do with their lives, hopefully, for themselves, not for me or for anybody else external. They're going to see beautiful things that have happened in the arc of their lives. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know. I hesitate to say that we had a better position or a better understanding than they do. They have understanding that we couldn't possibly conceive of. Mm-hmm. Having been growing up in a world that was, dedicated and promoted with social media, perhaps they have a different view on how to do that with themselves. It just came into being with our lives, and we were in, our 30s and 40s when that happened. And, we have a different take on it. If it was always in your life, maybe you'd have a different take on it.
I think so.
So I don't know. My daughter leaves her fucking cell phone everywhere. And it's never on her person. And I'm just like, I sleep with it sometimes by my side. And I'm like, who's worse off?
That's actually encouraging that she doesn't.
She doesn't.
It's not glued
It's
to
not
her.
everybody. And I bet you the majority of that generation is not like that. I think that we like to, again, and maybe this goes back to the shame. Maybe this goes back to like how we feel about our own,
We generalize.
We generalize a lot, which is bad news number one. But we also just assume a lot, which is bad news. Actually, that's way more worse than generalizing.
I would agree.
Makes an ass out of you and me.
Okay. right back to when I was 10.
But yeah, I think that like you can't possibly know. Like we can't possibly know what this generation of kids who went through the pandemic are going to do as adults. Maybe it fortifies some of them. Maybe it makes every generation. I mean, if we stop and think about it, it's the spectrum. Every generation has a spectrum. There's no one generation we can point to that said, "Oh, they had the most amazing scientists. They had the most." No,
right.
There's not one fucking generation that we can point to that said there was something so spectacular about this generation that will never happen again.
Right.
That's like it's ludicrous.
Yeah,
it's a spectrum of people
thinking.
Feeling the spectrum of things because we are human beings, and that is what's going to happen.
Well, I think humans do that when they get to be our age or older, and they romanticize about times. Past. And of course, those times are better than what they're currently going through, right? I mean, that's immediately. Of course, it was.
Oh, it's so much better when I was. The 80s were fabulous. I used to sit by a rotary phone and wait for somebody
the rotary
to call for
phone
like
is
2
so
hours,
much better
and
than my
nobody would
iPhone.
call, and then I'd be sad and go to bed, and I'd cry and go to sleep. Oh, it's so much better.
All right, so
Yes.
Talk to me about art before the internet.
I don't know art before the internet.
I don't mean you personally. Just talk about it. In that, had you been born 20 years earlier, okay, and you took the same path in life, had the same talent, same person, just 20 years earlier.
Again, this goes to the I walked up 5.
No. I don't mean harder. No. I'm not saying which is harder. I'm asking how was art marketed? What were traditional ways an artist could market before the web? Because the internet, I would think, changed everything, right? And
it did and it didn't. It's still like
okay.
So prior to the internet, I guess there was the option. Still sort of socially driven. I mean, if there was a curator or a gallerist that wanted to make some money on an artist, perhaps they would, it wasn't necessarily talent driven, and it's not necessarily talent driven today. Is
it more talent driven today?
No, I don't. I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe it's more visually driven, where it's just a superficial sort of glance. Maybe it was that way then. I mean, it's a different vehicle of transmitting that experience. And so I mean, for myself, I just encourage artists to just be their best advocate, and to if this is something that you want to do as a professional and as a career, then you need to do your own market research, your own research and development. You need to work and function as a business, and you need to obviously bring to the table your passion, because that's what makes you unique, but not to rely on other people. And the art market, as if you will want to call it that, is going to always be the same. It's going to shift in terms of the technology, but it's always going to fundamentally be the same. And the fundamental sameness of that is, does it make money for the person selling it? It's not for the artist. So, the artist distribution, anything. I mean, if the only reason why anybody gets behind your art or tries to represent you or whatever, is for their own financial gain. It's not for the art itself. It's not because you're specifically talented or not. It's not because of anything other than financial gain. And then, you know, if you're going to be an artist and you want to sell your work and you want to, you know, be true to what your work is, and if you're willing to do the hard work of the business element of it, which is hard work. I'm not going to deny that. Like, it's the worst part of my job is to focus on the financials or the business element. But if I don't do that and I allow that to be in somebody else's hands, then I could potentially be losing what I want to do as an artist. And so I've been very fortunate in so much as I've been able to not have to relinquish my sensibility in terms of an artist or a person to somebody else. Now, there are lots of artists, that said, who don't have to do either one of those things, that get picked up by a gallery or by a museum or whatever, and they don't ever have to question or be anything other than themselves. And that's fabulous. But that's like saying, you know, I'm in a band and we're going to be Kiss. Are ya? It's a very similar kind of situation in terms of any of the arts that you can think of. I mean, performance art, actors, you know, band, like anything that's an art form. There's a very, very little percentage of people.
So you're basically, there has to be luck involved too, to a degree.
Yes and no. I mean, I'm a professional artist without any luck involved.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have any gallery represent. I mean, I could, I guess, but like then I would have to. There are things that I would have to give up to have that. I'm not that top. I'm not the Kiss. You know, I'm the traveling band that does all right. You know, and it's great, and I can make a profession out of it, and it feels good, and I'm always like doing what I want to do. And I feel really good about that.
Okay.
And I think that you'd find in these, you know, artistic pursuits, if you will, that there are lots of people that feel really good about being just a professional in that space without being, you know, a rock star.
Yeah.
And that's
money.
Good. It's not that, you know, whatever. I mean,
it means different to different people, right? I mean,
money is not the sign of success for me. The sign of success for me is, do I feel good about what I'm doing? And I feel very fucking good about what I'm doing.
Okay. But so I might not have articulated myself right. So let me go back to my question about the internet. Somebody hears.
You probably did, but I just
no. I don't think I did. Somebody finds your work today, or they talk to their cousin in Pittsburgh, and they're talking about pieces, and they can go instantly to your website and see your work, your style of your work, and get a feel for it. Right? That availability wasn't possible for artists before the web. Am I right?
You're not incorrect. But there was other transmissions of, you know, ways to acquire art prior to that. That would have been like.
So I'm asking how was it done?
I'm speculating only because,
then?
like, you know, that's all I can do because I wasn't privy to all of these things, but I would say that it would be somebody that says this is worth collecting. This is something that I want. And you have to remember that the goal behind a lot of these situations was, well, I've collected this thing. Now I want other people to, because it will increase the value of what I have. What are the goals that people have in terms of art? I think my suggestion would be a really good documentary to watch behind that would be Exit Through the Gift Shop, which is a Banksy documentary, whom I appreciate in terms of his or hers or whatever the collaborative is. We don't know who Banksy is, but I suspect that we do, sort of.
Okay.
So at any rate.
Is it a person?
I think it's one person, and I do think it's a male. Only because I don't think it would have been as highly successful if it had been a female. But at any rate, I do believe that Banksy has a lot of very poignant and well documented ideas of just what you said, like kind of prior to and post, right? Like, okay. What existed prior to this was this kind of secret society, if you will, of like what to acquire and what to, like, you have to remember, like, Banksy became huge in like the 90s. Right. That was pre-cell phone, or at least pre-cell phone to the plebes, right? Right. I didn't have a cell phone until I was 27, and that was well into the 2000s. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think it's a great documentary to watch in terms of like why we perceive art to be expensive. And art should be, by the way, as somebody that is producing artwork and is a professional in this business, I'm not saying that it should be like, accessible financially to everyone, though there should be ways that it can be accessible to everyone. Whether it's by public art, which I think is a really important thing to remember to do and to have in our communities, or in, licensing, so there can be prints or whatever. But like, we don't exist to like just like kowtow to like. I have to make money to support my children.
Absolutely.
And I believe that what I do has, a certain amount of, financial backing to that. And I will increase my prices based on that. And I'm going to do it like every other business. Mm-hmm. I hate talking about that part of it because it feels very soulless, and my work is not. And what I do is very soulful. But I'm also not going to not support my family, and I'm not going to not think about these things just because they feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. I think, again, go back, we can full circle now, right back to the Bumble. Yeah. Right back to the Bumble we go. And
out the door he went.
Sometimes things that make you feel uncomfortable are the things that make you grow. Mm-hmm. And I really don't. I dismiss the idea of the starving artist because it means that you're relying on other people to support you. And I really want to support the artists out there who are supporting themselves and doing so by virtue of their talent and also by their business savvy. And there's nothing wrong with that, just like anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought about doing Giclees? Am I pronouncing that? Giclee? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You know how I feel about those.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do. We've discussed this on previous.
This is so long ago.
Kill me now if I do a Giclee. It's a Giclee, and I can't stand it. It's a Giclee. Giclee. You don't even have to fucking put a Frenchy thing. Giclee.
Giclee.
It's a Giclee.
Okay.
You're still doing it.
Giclee.
Giclee.
No, I don't talk French.
It's a Giclee.
Giclee.
I actually don't know how to pronounce it. I'm just fucking with them right now.
I was saying Glycee when I first bought one.
Yeah, don't buy a Glycee. The Glycees. They're not going to help you. No. I mean, I've always pronounced it Giclee, but you could be right on the pronunciation. And you don't really care.
And you don't want to do that.
I really abhor it.
Really?
Yes.
I don't know.
Especially hate when they wrap the canvas with the image around the side. I want to vomit every time I see it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is the one point that I'll be very stern on, and I won't accommodate anybody else's feelings. Because I don't really care about anybody else's feelings on this. I feel very strongly about this.
This is so great.
I hate Giclees.
Okay. So obviously you're not going to do that.
No.
So why exactly do you hate them? We know you're not going to do it, but why do you absolutely like? There's
no soulfulness in them.
Okay, it's a philosophical thing.
I don't even know. It's aesthetic. I don't care where you're pulling from the reason. I think they look like shit.
Okay.
I think they look like...
You use so much texture, it's almost possible to produce one.
It doesn't even matter. I've done prints. I do prints. I will do prints on metal. I've done prints on paper. But there's something like respectful about the work when you do it on those two. And I'm sure there are lots of other things that you could do it on. That would be fabric. I've done prints on fabric. I've worn skirts that are made out of my work. There's something about a Giclee that feels
like a replication.
No, they're all replications. I don't know how to describe it. It's like
fraudulent.
It's like Bed Bath and Beyond. and I don't like it.
Selling prints then.
It's just me.
Are you going to sell prints of your work?
I've sold prints of my work, but if you do it, I feel like it should be on a quality paper.
Yes.
You should have a frame that it's recessed in, and it should be signed.
Absolutely.
As a numbered sign piece. And that gives it a gravitas that a fucking Giclee makes me vomit over.
Okay.
Like I don't know what to tell you, because I'm sure nobody feels this way at all about anybody that's listening. Oh, by the way, we didn't talk about the thing that I need to talk about.
We're not done.
Okay, good.
We're not done. I got to keep you pissed off for a while on the Giclee.
You can't really keep me pissed off that long, because I tend not to really like being pissed off.
No, so. I was really trying to say, have you sold prints of your work? That's where I was headed with it. I just happened to go right to the Giclee.
Actually, I've sold lots of prints of my work.
Do you believe in the concept of hand-enhanced prints? Have you heard that one?
I don't even care about that, so long as my work is printed on high-quality paper with archival ink, and whether it's signed by me or not, I feel like the person that's receiving that is going to frame it properly, or even if they stick it up with sticky tack, I don't fucking care. It's better than Giclee.
Okay.
I don't know what
hand enhanced mean, like I'm saying you add hand enhanced. I think artists
I've
never
they
get a print and then they start applying.
Again, that goes back to the Giclee thing.
Okay.
There's something really tacky about it.
Okay.
Okay, I feel really bad because it's my own aesthetic that makes me feel tacky about it, but like I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm sorry, viewing audience.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Now we know.
I don't like when people do a picture and they have it framed and stretched on a canvas. Can't do it. I can't do it. This is the one thing that you're going to find that I have no open-mindedness about.
That's okay. Now we know. Yeah. All right. So what are you involved with here locally?
Oh, okay. So, so we did talk about this post-pandemic that I did do. During the pandemic, I did do a fundraiser, a GoFundMe for a community of people that I really adore and love, and especially because I was a waiter for 10 years, so like can appreciate the amount of like abuse that one gets doing that profession. I did raise money for restaurant workers during the pandemic, but I have, because that was no longer something to raise money for at a certain point, because people either A, lost interest, or B, stopped funding it.
Right.
I moved to doing something for another community of people that I've really appreciated and loved and adored for my whole life, and that is the LGBTQ plus community. Mm-hmm. And so a good friend of mine who is the president of the board and runs the Persad. I always say it wrong. And I just want to say to everybody that I often put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. So
Say that back.
I know
Say
that
back 10 times.
Emphasis syllable. Emphasis. Anyway, it's. I always say Persad, and I know that's wrong because it's Persad. It's Persad. Anyway, I'm sorry. I love you all. I am the art committee. I am the art committee for the Art for Change fundraiser that they have every year. And I've been donating to this fundraiser for the last 10 years, but last year they brought me on as their chairman of the committee because again, I know so many wonderful people that work there and who have been aided there, and the organization is turning 50 years old next year.
Wow.
And they bring affordable or free care, mental health care to the LGBTQ plus community, which is so underserved and also so still so peripheral, I think, for a lot of people in terms of our community. And that's sad to me because it was never for me. I feel that everybody is entitled to their own sexuality 100%. So it just is baffling that we're still fighting certain battles. But at any rate, and we might even be going backwards, by the way, with certain things. It's troubling and sad. But I went on last year, and it was the first year since COVID. So I guess they had a year lapse in having a physical fundraiser for Art for Change. And I was their art committee. We did everything per the usual, except for the space, and the actual event went kind of back to the roots.
Okay.
So when they were first doing this event, it was done in like factories or in these like weird places where, like, I mean, we're talking about 50 years ago,
right.
And we're talking about a foundation that supports LGBTQ plus.
Right.
So really kind of underground, right? And so the Art for Change programs, the fundraiser that they started, and some of these people are like the most amazing human beings that you'll ever meet, are still doing the same and supporting the same fundraiser, and they started it. It's like amazing, this community. Anyway, so when they first started it, it was a little underground, and then it became kind of commercial, not in a bad way, but it's like in some ways that's really great. Like you get a lot of foundation support, you get a lot of kind of like you go back to the same people, you're going to get the same money, et cetera, et cetera. But it lost that sort of allure that the original fundraiser had, which was this sort of like spicy kind of fun event that like you kind of had to know it was happening.
Got it.
Got it. And last year, it came back that way, and we did it at this place called This Is Red, and it was in Munhill, and it was like this like converted church, and it had all of this like aesthetic of like being underground and also being like super cool and chill and all this. And it was a beautiful, beautiful event, but it also kind of followed the regular structure that the art part had followed in the past, and that was basically like anybody could bring art and you put it up and like people would bid on it, and it sort of became like a thing that Pittsburgh based artists, for sure, the ones that were professional, decided not to contribute to.
Okay. And
that troubled me because I'd been contributing to it and I still contributed to it. But I understood why. And it was because, like, you're professional artists and you're hanging your work against, like, people that would bring artwork from their basement from a yard sale that they got. And so I was determined to change that, to change it both for the organization and their fundraiser and for the artist community. Okay. So this year, for the first time, 20% of the sale of the work will go back to the artist, which seems minuscule, but it's better than 0%. And it also acknowledges that one of the communities that was hurt very hard by COVID was, in fact, the artist community. I mean, if you weren't
Right,
established,
sure.
if you're new and up and coming, and you're just like whatever, it was hard. It was very hard, and some of them are not even practicing today because of it. So that was important to me, and it's important to acknowledge that like it's a contribution of time and talent. It doesn't necessarily have to be a contribution of materials. So 20% should cover, at least I hope, the materials that went into to making the
So
work.
I'm not taking a loss.
Correct. And the other part of this was that it's not just going to be anything accepted. Like, you have to go through a process of like, sending in the work through a Google Doc on the website. This is the work that I'd like to like donate.
Got it.
And so because one of the things that you do get is a ticket to the event, which is $125. It's a fabulous event. I mean, it's just so much fun. It's like one of the most fun events that I've been to in Pittsburgh in a very long time. And it's also you get a second pass at 50% off if you're an artist that's contributing. So you get that, you get the 20% of the sale of the work. But it's just acknowledging our artist community in the face of this post-pandemic situation, and just also acknowledging artists in general that we get asked all the time to contribute to things.
Yes.
And yet we're still diminished and marginalized in so many ways with the same organizations, which cracks me up because it's like, really? Oftentimes it's artists that make certain areas like cool and livable and awesome. Right. And then the same sort of developers or whatever, like, will scoff at, said artists, which is, it's just it's sad, but
it's demeaning.
It's not even demeaning. It's sort of just sad. It just says a lot about how we view and respect our artist community and what the artist community does for the rest of the people living in this world. I mean, what would you do without it? How would things be cool without it? How would things be like?
I don't want to live in that world.
No, nobody does. But yet at the same time, nobody wants to support that world. And so I would just want to focus a little bit more, and as an artist advocate, not as an arts advocate. So I want to be very, very specific about the difference. I'm an artist advocate. I want to acknowledge the work that people do. I want to acknowledge that there should be payment in association with said work. And I want to acknowledge that artists are people, and we have families, and we have the same needs and responsibilities that the rest of the society has. Our partners, or even if we're living by ourselves, it's still a maintenance of self, right? And so we have to acknowledge these things, and we have to compensate accordingly, and stop thinking that artists live on pixie dust and fairy tales, because we don't. We don't. Guess what? We don't.
So when is the event?
That's in September 9th.
September 10th, 9th?
September 9th.
What calendar are you using?
September 9th.
Oh, Eric, it's September 9th, I believe. If I'm wrong, I will correct. But
we'll get corrected.
But at any rate, so let me tell you a little bit more about what we're doing.
Yes.
So the other thing too is that we used to have just a live auction and a non-live auction where you just like put a bid in. And again, anybody could submit work. It could be whatever. Right. So we're minimalizing the accessibility of work that's accepted and brought in, and making sure that like we're elevating the art.
Yeah. And you're
the
curating
artwork,
it, right?
You're curating it. And then the other thing that I thought was rather genius, and also means
I don't know if I can reach back here and do that.
Yes, you can.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Flexible.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the other thing that I thought was important was to take the responsibility on the person that's organizing the art part of it, and sort of like giving it out to the community who is in support of this organization and committed to its mission. So we now have 5 little galleries within the gallery.
Oh, okay.
Wherein I've reached out to friends and colleagues that I know in this art world of ours in Pittsburgh. And they are going to curate and bring in artists and have like, I keep calling them booths because I'm an art fair kind of girl.
Sure.
But like if I'm going to speak to the majority of people here, I would call them mini galleries.
Okay.
So they're going to be mini galleries with artists selected by the quote unquote gallerist or curator, if you will, that they bring in. So it's the onus is off the person, kind of bringing, but also elevates the work in many different ways, and also supports those organizations or those gallerists or those personalities that are coming in to do that work. So
it's a win-win.
We have it's a win-win, and it's also I so encourage people, if you like art, this is the event to go to. This is where you're going to find work that you haven't seen before as in terms of Pittsburgh-based artists, and in many ways also we have nationally based artists, but like this is where you find your community. This is where you find your artists. This is where you find where to go to it. And I always said to Eric before too, the best way to get to know an artist is go to their studio. Mm-hmm. The best way to get to know an artist is see where they work, and and once you open up that door for yourself, you're gonna find yourself wanting to do it with more and more artists. I think that it's sort of like the if pot is like the what, the entryway drug or whatever they call it. Gateway drug, then like, yeah, this is like the gateway drug to acquire an art collection, is to go and see an artist in their studio, meet them, understand their process. It just opens it up to so many different things. It opens it up for it. It lowers the veil of elitism to art.
Yes. I would say yes.
And I think that is a beautiful fucking thing.
I would say yes.
You know, there's so many people so afraid of, what if I get it wrong? Mm-hmm. What if I don't know?
No question.
Who cares?
No question.
What do you like? What makes you feel, circling back to like when people were in their homes during COVID, and what did they want to be surrounded by? Everybody gets to have that opportunity. Mm-hmm. What do I feel makes me happy in my environment? And I think when you get to know an artist, it just alleviates the initial sort of like caution of like, I'm not going to get this right. Who cares?
Well, it breaks down a barrier for sure.
Who cares?
Yeah,
and it's awesome. So anyway, I'm going back to the little galleries. So I asked I am very fortunate in so much as I know a lot of good people in the art scene here. And so I asked my friends actually to participate in this. So I have Madeline Gent, who is the executive curator of the Associated Artists of Pittsburgh. She is going to curate a booth as her own person, not as Associated Artists of Pittsburgh, because she's an amazing curator. And so she's going to bring in, and each one of these will bring in 8 to 10 artists. And again, the artists get 20% of the sale, but they're doing the work of bringing them in. So I greatly appreciate everybody I'm about to mention. So Madeline Gent, and then Judy Berry, who is the executive curator of the Chautauqua Institute. She does the most amazing installations at the Chautauqua Institute that I've seen in this. I mean, it's 2 hours away, and it's also in New York, so I can't say Pennsylvania, but it is beautiful. And she has a great eye, and she just has a tremendous understanding of the artists working in this area. She herself is an artist, and her work is tremendous. I have it in my home, and she's just a great person. She's actually, I would consider, my mentor. Okay. I have Daryl Kinsell, who is a co-founder of Boom. Okay. In Greens, in what do you call that area? I'm sorry, I'm spacing. It's next to Upper Lawrenceville.
Greenfield?
No, I just said that out loud, and that was wrong. That was so wrong. Anyway, they had the first night Fridays, and they do the art walk-in.
Lawrenceville, Bloomfield.
Yeah, I don't know. now I said it and I brain farted. But anyway, Daryl is a good friend, and he is an awesome curator, artist himself as well. His art is beautiful, and he is going to curate a booth with prints, which I'm very excited about, because the other thing is that art should be accessible.
Wow.
So art can be thousands of dollars, or it can be a couple of 20s or a couple of 100s. It's a start. And as soon as you bring real art into your life, as soon as you bring something, you don't go back.
Right.
Like you just keep going forward. Again, gateway drug. It really is. It's just something that you bring in because it's enriching, and it makes you feel connected to the artist. And there's something beautiful about that connection that you don't get through everyday life. There's something that is very bonding about that connection, and I think it's something that everybody should experience if they can, or if they're interested in. We have Steve Mendelson, who is very known in the community as being he was also one of the first people to support the Persad auction for Art for Change, and did it in his gallery. He has a gallery on Ellsworth Avenue, and he's just been a fabulous promoter of local art and international art and national art, and he's just a very, very big name in the art community. He's actually bringing in work from his personal collection to have in this booth.
Okay.
And then we have Rachel Rearick, who is so fantastic. She is the executive director of the museum for. I'm going to get this one wrong. It's not Craft.
You're allowed.
It's not Craft, but it's the museum on Butler. I can't even believe it. I'm sorry, Rachel. Anyway, you're fabulous and you're wonderful. And she's going to do, so this is going to be more like driven by work that isn't necessarily 2D. Okay. So we're talking about sculpture, right. And we're talking about like fabric art, fiber art. And I think it's going to be an amazing booth. I keep calling it a booth. Amazing little gallery that she's going to have there too. Okay. So those are our 5. And I am going to be curating the live auction. I shouldn't say curate. I'm going to be reaching out to artists that I know that can support the big money. And
it's the power play.
Because the live auction, we're hoping to bring in $2,000 to $5,000 for each piece that comes into the live auction. So, and this all goes to support a community that is underserved, especially with the mental health issues, and this has been an organization that Pittsburgh should be proud of a lot of things that we don't even know that we have. We were on the forefront of the same-sex marriage. We were on the forefront of providing healthcare and emotional support to our LGBTQ plus community. We were on the forefront of a lot of things that, we get sort of under, viewed or not as well, publicized as maybe our sports are. We are on the forefront of art. We are second only to the Venice Biennial in terms of having a show, an exhibition that promotes contemporary art. Carnegie, the Museum of when he went to the biennial in Venice, he said we have to have this in Pittsburgh, and so we have the first one here that showcases the contemporary art that will go forward for the next 4 years. So the idea of the international, which is upcoming, is that we promote what is interesting and relevant and significant in contemporary art. And we have that here in Pittsburgh, and people don't even know about it. And it is second only to the Venice Biennial, which is shocking. So Pittsburgh, we're known for a lot of other things other than art.
Open your eyes.
Other than sports. But, go Steelers and all the other things. I mean, I'm not unsupportive of those things either.
I know you're not.
So.
I know you're not.
I go to Penn's games now.
Wow, look at you.
Look at me. Well,
You like hockey.
Well, I do. Okay, can I be honest?
Yeah.
I go there and I am the loudest fucking fan.
Really?
Oh,
You?
I scream. I'm like, well, there's something very exciting about hockey.
Because of the violence.
It's a little bit, yeah. It's very, it's very raw.
It's fast.
It's very raw. It's fast, and it's like, yeah. And also, my partner is a hockey player, so it's kind of like it's a little sexy too.
See, now the truth really comes out.
Yeah.
Do you have fun? Mm-hmm. You always have fun when you come here.
I do. Well, you're awesome.
No, I'm not awesome. You're awesome. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
It means a lot to me.
Well, we'll
see in 2020. We'll see in 2024 now.
I didn't even know that we talked about art. This is a good one. I really enjoyed this one. It was a little more personal, and it was I liked it a lot. It was good.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
So I don't have to wait 2 years.
I don't know if anybody likes my input on things.
I don't have to wait 2 years for you to come back.
No. That was not my fault. There was a pandemic.
There was issues, yes.
We
had some scheduling things, but still, way too long, my friend. Yeah. And you were one of the ones who believed in the show in the beginning. You took a chance.
I believe in good energy. I believe in people like talking about things that maybe they're not even comfortable talking about. Like you, I think you probably have transformed through the course of this because we should. Mm-hmm. We should be, no doubt, kind of like in flux as well as everything else.
I think so. And the show certainly made me more, more emotionally fluid, even philosophically fluid too. I mean, people from all different walks of life with different viewpoints.
Yes.
And I would go home and ponder things like, wow, I never looked at it that way.
Exactly.
Happens all the time.
Perspectives are so interesting if you can allow yourself to be open to them. Mm-hmm. It is just the best way to grow as a human being is just
talking,
have
like
that.
real communications as opposed to doing this all day, right?
Well, even that. Just don't see? I'm going to give you a different perspective on that.
There we go.
Don't diminish it because sometimes it's for them. For the kids that grew up that way.
They're doing it, yeah.
That's what they're doing.
I get it. No, I totally get it.
I mean, and even sometimes with me, sometimes I read the text in my voice, and I'm like, that's not how it's supposed to be read. And then I have the person read it in their own voice, and I'm like, fuck. So.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. Anyway, it's awesome to see you. Thank you for having me.
Good seeing you too.
It was a really fun time.
And we'll see you in 2024. Mia Tarducci, we're out. And it's miatarducci.com, by the way.
Bye.